and welcome to Stage 2 of New Zealand's bid to qualify for España 82, the World Cup finals, and this is what they'll be playing for, the FIFA World Cup. A telecast tonight is of New Zealand's first match in the final Asia-Oceania qualifying round. The match will start in about a quarter of an hour from now at the 63,000-seat Workers' Stadium in Beijing. Beijing now the official name for the capital of the People's Republic of China, the city formerly known as Peking. The temperature in Beijing tonight is about 25 degrees Celsius, the weather fine, warm and humid. The New Zealand team, incidentally, is staying at a hotel there where there is also a large group of marathon runners from many points around the world. They're there for the first Beijing International Marathon to be run on Sunday, and included in that group of runners are some from New Zealand. So the New Zealand soccer team will not be without a bit of home nation support in their match tonight. Their opponent, of course, the People's Republic of China. They finished at the top of the table in Asia-Oceania qualifying Group 4. As well as China, this group included Hong Kong, North Korea, Macau, Singapore and Japan. And instead of a home and away series, this group winner was decided at a single tournament held in Hong Kong last December and January. The tournament final was between China and North Korea. Here are highlights of that match. China is in the all-orange strip, and of course there's no English commentary.
中場球員金正萬過咗20號嘅陳希榮，起腳就池上斌7號李昌河單刀射入1比0。上半場僅僅係開波2分鐘啊，朝鮮就成中國陣腳未穩啦，係以1比0咧領前啦。起腳射波嘅就係9號金正萬，個波咧係彈到5號嘅池上斌，再彈落去7號嘅李昌河隻腳，單刀射入。 攞唔到，個波咧落咗喺朝鮮腳下。咁講明佢啲右臂運用員啊，鏟得運用員金正萬、李正萬起腳射埋去啦，李富勝飛身一撲得。左樹生、黃向東、左樹生，大鐘咧已經打咗45分14秒啦。左樹生。 吳永秀行住佢，黃向東、容志行將個波送入禁區，冚唪唥落晒，黃向東隔角度之後射入1比1。全場嘅球迷啊，都為中國隊打氣。 中國嘅職球員呢亦好開心啊！容志行將個波用右腳送入去，古廣明頂唔到，尹用賢逆流，黃向東喺窄角度之下射入，比數係1比1。咁上半場咧差唔多完場啦。古廣明，楊玉敏，容贈之失彈地。 吳永南解圍，蔡錦標球證咧吹罰，朝鮮排咗個3人人牆，6號李正萬、8號季振橋，池上斌射埋，龍門甩手，陳希榮門前執死雞，2比1。 隊後來居上，池上斌踢呢個罰球，咁6號季振橋閃開啊，金槍根呢彈琵琶，咁而俾二受嘅陳希榮啊門前執死雞，2比1。左二集，咁球證咧吹罰，10少嘅姜明三，李富勝漏油。 吳永南頂入2比2，下半場嘅11分47秒，咁啊朝鮮呢攀成平手。呢個波龍門啊李富勝咧甩手2比10。 尹用賢、林樂峰、古廣明，好刁鑽嘅球員啊，好似濕水攬物咁。用之行，吳永南頂出，黃向東射入，3-2。加時下半場嘅4分55秒，中國隊由6號嘅黃向東啊遠射死角入網，以3-2咧再次領前。呢個波射得靚啊，差唔多貼住條門柱入網啊！加時下半場已經打咗7分04秒啦。中國隊喺較早之前啊，靠6號嘅黃向東咧遠射一球，以3-2咧暫時領前噶。李成根用之行扛住佢，古廣明推入中路，直射入網，4-2。加時下半場嘅7分39秒，中國隊由15號嘅古廣明咧單刀射入，以4-2啊領前2球。呢個波咧全靠容志行咧扛住5號嘅李成根。
Well, I'm sure you learnt plenty from the commentary in that match there. The final score 4-2 to China, and the New Zealanders will be hoping that the goalkeeping is as shaky as that tonight. Well, here's China's complete record in their qualifying round then. They started with a 1-0 victory over Hong Kong, 3-0 against Macau, 1-0 against Japan, and incidentally, that's the same Japanese team which attended the recent Merdeka tournament and lost 1-0 to the New Zealand B team. Then China beat Hong Kong on penalties in the semi-final before beating Korea again in extra time. So China's progress to this qualifying round has not been as nearly as clear-cut as that of New Zealand. Just a word on North Korea, though. In 1966, the Koreans got through to the World Cup finals in England that year and caused a sensation by eliminating Italy and Chile in their group before leading Portugal 3-0 in the quarter-final, but then succumbed 5-3 after Eusebio scored 4 goals for Portugal. Well, our pictures are through from the Worker Stadium in Beijing. We'll be crossing there in just a moment. Right, well, our satellite feed is through from the Worker Stadium in Beijing, and now you will join 100 million people in China and many millions of others around the world to watch this match. The teams on the field, as you can see. Let's take a look at the New Zealand lineup for this match. In goal, Richard Wilson. Across the back, Glenn Dodds, Bobby Armand, Ricky Herbert and Adrian Eldrick playing in place of John Hill. Duncan Cole, Steve Sumner, the captain, and Keith Mackay, along with Brian Turner, Steve Wooden and Grant Turner. The manager, John Adshead, and the assistant, Kevin Fallon. Now to the Chinese team. In goal is Li, the back four Chai, Liu, Chi Shangbin, who's the captain, and Lin. Then across the midfield, Chen, Rongzi Hang, number 18. He's the 32-year-old veteran of the Chinese team, recalled for the Hong Kong tournament and won the Player of the Series award in that qualifying tournament. And the front three are Yang, Yu, and Huang. The manager, Su Yong-shun. 63,000 people at the Workers' Stadium. And our commentator there for Television New Zealand is the BBC's Barry Davies.
Checking whether we have clear communication with you in New Zealand. But if we have, let me tell you that the spirit of your side is absolutely first class. There have been 1 or 2 minor injury problems. Glenn Dodds has recovered, I'm glad to say, from a right hamstring. There, we're looking down at the crowd and back again at the team, so I can go on with the injuries. Steve Woodin also had a slight pull yesterday afternoon in the final training session, but he told me a few moments ago that he's quite comfortable and happy. And also Steve Sumner has been suffering with a rather peculiar injury, a piece of flesh come cartilage which is rolling around his right ankle, and if it gets in the wrong position can prove very painful. It could well be that he'll have to go off couple of times for a manipulative operation during the course of the match, but we hope that that won't be the case. All the officials tonight come from Japan, and the referee is Toshikayushu Sano of Japan. But now the two national anthems.
The national anthem of New Zealand and China. 请全体起立。
You can probably hear the PA announcement. There's now an exchange of pennants and souvenirs, and you will have gathered from the applause for the anthems a really bubbling atmosphere here in the Workers' Stadium. Let me then just give you a check on the teams as we look at the Kiwis, who've tied the kangaroo down very nicely. Now what can they do against the panda of China? The team really only shows one change from the last match, and that is at fullback, where the manager, John Adshead, has decided that he wants pace at the back, so he's brought in Glenn Dodds instead of John Hill, and the other fullback being Adrian Elric. Two skippers coming to meet, Brian Turner on the left, and Steve Sumner has come up to greet his opposite number. And his opposite number, a player of considerable experience, like Steve himself, Rong Chi Hang, who was the player of the tournament in the Hong Kong tournament, which China won, as you saw, to come through to this second and final stage of qualification for Spain. And their team, by and large, is that which played in the tournament and then went on a tour of Europe, where they gained undoubted experience, and probably their best result was in defeat when they went down 2-1 to Benfica, the champions and cup winners of Portugal. As well as Rong Chi Hang, their captain. They have some very experienced players. Most of them have got at least 20 caps. But of course, whether they're experienced at this level, we don't know. And one has to face the fact that the New Zealanders tonight are going into something of the unknown, because this will be the first World Cup game played here in Peking for over 20 years. And it's going to be the Chinese team who will get the match underway. The pitch, I must tell you, is very good indeed. It was cut this morning and watered a little bit. The New Zealand players expressed themselves very happy with it yesterday when they trained on it, and they compared it quite favourably with Mount Smart. And an early test and an early touch of the ball for Richard Wilson. Break there by Shen Qiangfu on the left side. And there's no doubt that, judging from the training spells, there's a great deal of pace in this Chinese side. And the New Zealanders will want to sort of pen them in at the back as much as possible. Looks as though both keepers are going to get an early touch. Li Fuxiong gets applause for the first simple handle of the game. Here's Dodds in his first contest against Shen Fiangyu. Nice bit of play by Bobby Almond. I think he was fouled and the referee thought so as well. A bit of elbows into him by the number 8, Suo Shusheng. Richard Wilson's been a first choice since he got into the side against Australia. That was in 1979. Again, I would have thought a little bit of a push. Change from the back, but the Japanese referee not impressed. And the first shot, fairly tame one, coming up from Duncan Cole. Song Chai-Ling, number 12. Li Fuxiong, goalkeeper, plays for the August the 1st team, who are the champions here. It's their senior army team. Out on the right side is Lin Lafong. So far, basically, the Chinese playing with 2 up, 11 and 13. Chen Yinggang and Shen Xiangfu. And New Zealanders with all bar 2 behind the ball. Here's Zhang Chai-Ling. Bit of a stretch for Ricky Herbert. It's interesting in the early stages that the Chinese prepared to get up, and a little bit of argument going on at a very early stage, prepared to get up, but they're tending to jump a bit too early, and as a result they're certainly fouling their man, and the Japanese referee well alive to that. Quite a quiet start, which I think the New Zealanders will be happy about. General feeling in the camp that the longer the game goes on at 0-0 in the first half, the happier the Kiwis will be. Steve Sumner's back pass. Herbert to Bobby Almond. One or two managers in England who saw him when he came and played against the England B side rated him pretty highly. A little sad to find that he was a bit too near 30 for their liking. Again, the early jump over the top of Brian Turner. Good battling by Grant Turner, which we can expect to see, but a free kick given against him. Youngster with a great belief in his own ability, judging by 48 hours acquaintance. And good cover. Well, to get back there, Duncan Cole, and put his man off as the Chinese crowd were beginning to roar in anticipation. Certainly equal to Chinese pace then. The original entry for this World Cup tournament was 108. Already qualified Brazil and Chile, joining there Spain, who are the hosts, and Argentina, who are the holders. And there are 40 countries still seeking the remaining 20 places. Bit of a push by Brian Turner. Caught Sai Che Piao. It's Piao again.
We'll be very happy to do that here. That's good news.
And a little bit of problem. But good cover across the back by Bobby Almond.
Okay.
As Elric was struggling there for a moment. New Zealand ball. That's a nice turn by Grant Turner. His namesake up with him. Indication perhaps of slight pressure, and I think a misidentification by the English commentator, because Grant Turner, as you would have noted, I'm sure, was up on the edge of the 6-yard box. Brian Turner. And some good battling, and finally the shot from Steve Sumner. he really did rather have to flash at it, and he was leaning back, and with the inevitable result of the ball going up and over the crossbar. Li Fusheng is 28 years old. New Zealand average age just marginally less than the Chinese. Wang Qihang battled out of it, and the referee not liking the challenge by Steve Woodin. Woodin and Brian Turner, the front two for the Kiwis. But Elric has got to watch his man doesn't get away from him. And the effort there by Chen Jinggang. But there does seem to be a bit of a problem on the right side at this stage. Right side from a Chinese viewpoint. Adrian Elric perhaps being drawn a little bit far forward, and he allowed his man then to get behind him, and it has happened a couple of times. But the Chinese with lots of pace on the flanks, and indeed they've left out their fastest player who got a knock yesterday in training, Yang Yu-min, but he's on the bench. Duncan Cole. Pasa Mackay. Nice little chip up looking for Brian Turner. Turned away by Xiong. And just a little bit of overkeenness. Free kick for the foul on Wang Qihang. And a few words for Brian Turner. And a few Chinese words for the Japanese as well. At this stage, the Chinese with 3 forwards, 3 in midfield. And another free kick to be taken by Zhang Chaiying. Now 2 players mainly forward and 3 coming from behind. Header played under pressure, picked up by Mackay. Brian Turner, clear challenge from behind, the referee would need to stamp down on. By Tsai Che Piao. Just played straight through. Ricky Herbert, the baby of the New Zealand team, to take it. 2 Turners, both underneath it. Grant getting a second bite at it. There's a good jump at the back, though, by Chen Xianbing. Sumner. Recovery by Armand, and good battling by Cole. The problem then of their own making is Glenn Dodds. Turner, Grant Turner pushing out well. And Brian Turner on the right side, number 4. Long ball from Chen Xirong. They obviously do like to bring their wingers in the play. And particularly on the right side, a fair amount of width being offered by Gu Guangming. Sumner. Bit of time for Armand. Looking for Brian Turner, who's passed to the other side. Here's Grant Turner. The referee having to give a lot of whistle. 1 or 2 late challenges, 1 or 2 coming through from behind. But apart from the odd pace on the right, nothing at this stage to cause too much apprehension, I would have thought. Either in you, the watcher at home, or in the team. Grant Turner got a bit of a knock then. It was nicely played out. Lin Lafong. 5 is Chen Xianbing. More patient build-up this time, but the three front players going, and cry of disappointment from the crowd, which again will, I think, lift the spirits on the New Zealand bench, because that's exactly what they want to hear. And I must say they're pacing the game nicely at the start. Kiwi team. Making every effort to pressure the Chinese in the Chinese defensive third of the field to enable them not to build from the back and get their pacemen away on the flanks. That's a nice touch, but a foul on Brian Turner. Maybe the referee might have played the advantage there, because Steve Sumner had a little bit of space. Duncan Cole on the ball at the moment, believing it to Steve Sumner. Two taking a position on the far side of the box. Ricky Herbert has come up alongside Grant Turner, and Brian Turner going in front of them. You can just see in the foreground, and one player on the right is Buzzer Mackay. And the referee will want that taken again, because of the wall, well, he didn't think the wall was back. I must say I thought it was. It's a little bit of a disorganised wall. Thought the challenge from the side wasn't legal. Got a bit of conflab going on. Whether Sumner's going to have a shot or try and set it up for Ricky Herbert. Ricky Herbert is looking for the knockdown. But the knockdown from Grant Turner going harmless enough for the goal kick. No, it doesn't. The referee says it got a touch and it's a corner. You can hear the reaction from the local crowd. But I must say, to be fair to them, it surprised me too. Met by Grant Turner. Sumner underneath it. This is Mackay trying to battle his way through in not untypical style. Sumner, Cole. Turner had Herbert behind him. And we've had 12 minutes of the match, and as yet no score. Another theatrical clearance by Che Shambing. And the tackle by Brian Turner, and I think a yellow card is to be shown. It is indeed. Just to check on the number, my feeling is the referees had to give a number of free kicks, and perhaps it's not too surprising that when he shows the yellow card for the first time, he picks on a visitor. This match, incidentally, you may have heard me say at the start, being watched in Kuwait. We, of course, come to Mount Smart next month, and one would hope that the crowd will be, if not as big as the one here, because the stadium isn't quite so big, up to capacity. That's no problem for Richard Wilson. Ben Dodds with time to turn. And occasionally the Chinese are being caught on the ball. Rong Chi Hang there was a little bit slow, and we've noticed that number 8, Zhou Shuxiang, has wanted more time than the Kiwis are going to give him. And there's nothing the matter with that challenge either. This is Mackay. Dodds, Cole, and the Kiwis beginning to push it around a bit. Steve Woodin. And again, a long and rather useless ball from the Chinese point of view. Bobby Armand allowing Ricky Herbert to drop back, which was a wise move. And now the back four pushing up right to the halfway line as Wilson clears. Steve Woodin in the van up front. Brian Turner's dropped back for it. And a bit of pushing by side Che Piao. Tsai, one of the players from Guangdong in the south of China. former club of the current coach, Sun Yong-chung. Referee more insistent on the wall, which is of 4 players. They've got everybody back there, the Chinese. The Kiwis can afford to push somebody else forward, and in fact they're moving up number 3 there, Ricky Herbert. It could be that Cole's going to have a crack. So neither goalkeeper yet with a test. And the kick to be taken again. The ball didn't come out of the 18-yard area, as we still call it in England. Haven't yet managed to convert to metres in football terms, but it's not very much different anyway. Quite a lot of the midfield stuff being won by the white-shirted New Zealanders. We've gone past the 15-minute mark, and so far a pretty happy start by New Zealand. Only really Gu Gaming on the right has looked a threat, but he hasn't got a crossover of any note to Chen Jinggang in the middle. It's Tsai. Zhang Chaiying. Example again of the midfield not being allowed to build. Mackay immediately onto Zhang Chaiying. They've got a man in behind Dodds there, and they've got a man wide on the left too. Good challenge across. It's Adrian Elric who came right across from the other side, read it well. Zhang Chaiying again. And a great roar, but no pressure at all, because nobody coming on it on the far post, although it wasn't a bad cross. He was entitled to wonder why there was no Chinese player forward. Brian Turner. Again, the Chinese got up well. Tsai. Oh dear. I'm surprised from a player of his experience, Rong Chi-hang, just acting right in front of the referee. Suggestion there that Chen Jinggang has been watching a bit of football on television, and he gets the yellow card for that. Quite a deliberate attempt to stop the free kick being taken early. So we've had Brian Turner booked, and we've had Chen Jinggang booked. Some are prepared perhaps to have a crack, but it's, what, a good 35 yards away. And 5 marked by 5 on the edge of the box, so maybe a chip up would be of rather more use. And the referee's certainly getting the full distance back of the wall, which did its job. I would have thought the manager might have a few words about that, because the ball placed like that, and when you're man against man at the back, numerical numbers. Buzzer Mackay's cross, just a bit too far for Grant Turner. When the position is even at the back, you'd surely do well to chip it over the wall and make use of the even Steven. Here's Sumner. Hit it well, and the goalkeeper did well too. Gets a round of applause, but it was very well struck by Steve Sumner. Came into it, kept it down, and the goalkeeper grasped it well. Suo Shusheng again caught in possession and fouling his man. He looked very good in practice yesterday, but it's a very different game when you've got an opponent right on your toes. Bobby Armand's going to take it. He's got Mackay up on the right side of the box. Brian Turner forward, but well-organised offside trap, which is well applauded. Moved up very easily. Chen Xiangbing back to his goalkeeper. Bobby Harmon covering at the back. It's a little bit short, and Richard Wilson was in trouble, but Chen Jinggang took no advantage of it. And Bobby Harmon gets away with a definite error. And Chen Jinggang was as surprised as Richard Wilson, and the ball ran calmly away for the goal kick.
They're doing their best, but that's the situation we find ourselves in. How many minutes gone, buddy?
So on my watch, I make it 21 minutes gone now. Coming up to 21 minutes, and still no score. And one attempt at either end. One planned, one certainly not planned. It's Chen Jinggang again. It's being held out by Ricky Herbert. In the corner. Gu Guoming has gone into the middle. Zhou Shusheng just on the outside. And Sai Che Piao has come up as well, number 2. We've noticed how well he gets up in the air at the back. But he's not been given too much opportunity there. And as Buzzer Mackay went across, that's where he gets his name from, his ability to cover every blade of grass on the field. And no mean attempt. Sai. Try again. Sai Che Piao. About 5'9½", I would have said, and he certainly gets up well. Well, to convert that to meters, he's listed as being 177. Little number 2 at the back. Here's Brian Turner. Mackay. Cole making the outside run. Turner looking for it the other way. And the play continues. Although Grant Turner certainly made his presence felt then, both on defender and goalkeeper, but the referee didn't see it. Covered by Mackay in midfield, and a clear foul by Zhong Chia-ying. Do have a tendency to jump on the back in a man-to-man challenge in the air. Ricky Herbert. Brian Turner underneath it. Lin Lafong going into the space that was offered, but they're covering well at the back. Oh, Ricky Herbert didn't get in the chance, and great save by Richard Wilson from Chen Jinggang. Really hit it well, and really a warning there for Ricky Herbert, because he seemed to be goal side of him, but he didn't get round enough, and the Chinese felt that he had room for the shot and certainly hit it well, and the goalkeeper got down well on the left post. Sumner pushed out of it. Nice little turn by Gu Guoming. He sure has pace. This is a promising attack. They've got 3 in the middle, 2 outside. And the play up for offside anyway against Gu Guoming. Move forward just on the edge of the box then, the back 3 Kiwis. Mistake at the back by Bobby Harmon seems to have given the Chinese a bit of extra heart. Well played by Ulrich. Sumner to Mackay. Duncan Cole makes the run out to the right again. Grant Turner comes short. Brian Turner is forward, but the pass isn't a good one from Mackay, but he covers his error.
here. Okay.
Lin Lafong. Steve Woodin. Wanted somebody left side really, but nobody was wide enough. Comes the other way to Mackay. Brian Turner's taken up a position on the edge of the 6-yard box for Duncan Cole. Here he is. And it comes down. It didn't come down really quick enough. Well, they've got a corner from it. Steve Woodin has gone to take Zinders with 4 in the area. Brian Turner makes the earlier run. Grant Turner behind him. Ricky Herbert. It just brushed off the defender's head. That wasn't a bad cross by Cole. Shot by Mackay. It may not have looked a very good cross, but with the Chinese back in their own box, it was a cross to somebody coming onto it. Unfortunately for him, there was nobody coming onto it, and the New Zealanders had to turn as well. They'd all got sucked into the area. Woodin. Grant Turner, Brian Turner, Steve Sumner, nicely held by Mackay. Glenn Dodds. And hesitancy allows Grant Turner to come in. Nobody there to supply the finishing touch. Chinese ball. Zhang Chai-ying. Chen Ying-gang had come fairly deep then. Back pass is already blocked. Collected by Dodds. Here's Sumner. Woodin. That's good play by Steve Woodin. And hit it with his favoured left. Might have wished perhaps for an alternative of having somebody wide to his left. But even so, he was always prepared to have a crack, and as he turned, made a wide angle and hit it well, but fairly straight for the keeper to take.
Happy with that?
Here's Lin Lafong. Shen Xiangfu on the left side, and behind him, Zhang Chai-ying. Duncan Cole for New Zealand. Run slightly fortunately to Brian Turner. Bobby Armand. Back 4 pushing forward. Cole, nicely taken on the chest. But his pass didn't match his earlier control. Chinese football, incidentally, is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. We really got together just before the 1952 Olympics in terms of having a national league. Lin Lafong sometimes finds space coming forward from the back. Brian Turner getting goal side of him. And he held it nicely, but surely that's too far, even Magoo Goring. Beautifully done at the back. Bobby Armand who did it. Here's Steve Woodin. Beginning to settle to his game, Steve Woodin, I feel. Sumner. That's a good ball, spreading it out, and Dodds has plenty of room to move into here. Everybody left side of him. Grant Turner calling for it. Grant Turner's come up as well. Chen Gang has started to wander a bit and come away from the centre forward position. So Shu Sheng is now down the middle, number 8. 11 has gone to join him. This is Chen Xirong. Room for the cross, plenty of players going forward. Comfortably played by Sumner. And was there a hold? Yes, there was, and the free kick has been given. And as we just passed the half-an-hour point, still no score here at the Workers' Stadium in Peking. China 0, New Zealand 0. And although obviously the New Zealanders have come here with a positive attitude of going for the win, in terms of the group overall, to get a draw here in Peking might in the end prove to be thoroughly satisfactory. Good cover by Sumner, but not just a good header, needed the extra flick. Lin Lafong, and offside, quite clearly, against Shu Sheng. Verdict against Grant Turner. Chen Gang certainly wandering all over the place. There he is again on the right. So Shu Sheng, Zhang Chaiying. And dangerous play. Direct free kick given for foot up. Richard Wilson with certainly one good save to his name, down by his left post. A little bit of hesitancy. And it allows the Chinese a bit of room here. Wang Qihang on the ball. Again, too great a delay. And the final effort harmless enough. Chinese want more time than they're being given. And that can be nothing but good news from a New Zealand viewpoint. Well, there was absolutely nothing wrong with that challenge, in my opinion, but I think a free kick has been given. Ryan Turner clearly surprised, but he won the ball quite cleanly, as I think we saw. Lin Lafong. Nicely taken by Yu Guangming. And a good challenge across once more by Adrian Eric. He's covered across the back very, very well indeed. Lesson there for schoolboys. The attack comes from the other side, the far full-back coming across to cover. And a great roar goes up as Wang Qihang comes to take the corner. We've got 4 players in the 18-yard area. Long and strong and well out by Cole. Shi Bing at the back. Offside. Very comfortably again. Player caught was Chen Xirong. Ryan Turner's come a bit short for it, with the flick on, which he got, but comfortably covered by Tsai. This is wrong. Gugamin gives it back and goes on a run immediately. Li Lafong coming forward from the back. Good challenge by Steve Woodin. And Li Lafong trying to set himself up. And 35 minutes gone. Still China 0, New Zealand 0. Two out of the 4 sides in this final group, of course, to go through to Spain. Group that started with 21 teams from Asia and Oceania. Shin Jinggang. Nicely inside to Shen Changfu, who's still in possession. And Rong's finding a bit more space than he was, coming through from the midfield. There's Chen, Gu Guangming. Noticeable the New Zealanders pushing out on the half clearance. Good challenge by Elric. Not slow to come away. They spent a bit of time in training practicing that. The ball is cleared. A move up. It's Brian Turner. Acrobatics from his namesake. Just a bash away by Zhuo Sheng. Interesting reactions of the crowd. They have had their moments of producing volume, but they've been warned about their behaviour, which surprised one or two of us who hadn't been to China before, that the Chinese should be warned about such things. Good tackle by Cole. New Zealand ball. It's Bobby Almond. Herbert square. Steve Woodin offering himself here in the inside right position. Down to Mackay. He thinks about a crack and is certainly tripped by Rong, against whom a free kick is given for, dare I say it, his wrongdoing. Steve Woodin showing no signs of the pull that he had in training yesterday. Steve Sumner keen to get possession, and the Chinese keen to deny him. And the Japanese referee has been more successful in getting a 10-yard wall than many I've seen in Europe, although it's questionable whether he has here. Cole on the ball. 3 coming in for the run on the far post. Sumner, possibly, if the angle changes, for a left foot shot that might get round the wall. Change the angle once more. Nicely played by Woodin. Goalkeeper once again takes it falling forward. Must have heard about Woodin's reputation for shooting on the left foot. And Ricky Herbert back to Richard Wilson. He's had to make the best save of the match, but has been slightly less employed than his opposite number. Ben Dodds. Duncan Cole. New Zealand ball given. Just a bit of foul by Woodin, just a bit over keen. Not very pleased with the antics of Zhuo Sheng, and gets a yellow card, which was really rather silly of him, because they can count up if you get 2. Suspension can occur from what might be a key game. Woodin, I suspect, in hindsight, will be a bit cross with himself for that. So 3 bookings, but no goals. Free kick to New Zealand.
Thanks, Ian.
So that's the kick taken from slightly further back, the referee. Ricky Herbert going to take it. Ricky Herbert of Mount Wellington, former captain of the youth side. And they've caught them offside again. Well, that's something that John had said we'll have to sort out at half-time, because I found that very easy from free kicks from that distance. And I wonder whether that was a tactic learned in Europe. It's not one that onlookers of the game actually appreciate, because it does a great deal to stifle football, but it can, of course, be very effective. It's Gu Guangming. Looking for Gu Guangming again. They certainly require a certain amount of effort from him, to put it mildly. That's a useful turn, straight into the arms of Richard Wilson, who was nicely placed on his near post. Shen Xiangfu, I think it was, who got across to that right post as we looked. But it really was a very nice turn on the byline, but the goalkeeper very well placed to claim the header, which went straight at him, which was a lot to do with his positioning. Chen. Play continues. Bobby Armand. He was a little lucky then. That needed holding, I think, but it's always easier to say when you're sitting in the stand. In fact, we're sitting in a small box to the right of the dignitaries area. Here's Chen Jinggang. Quite adept at change of feet, the Chinese. And the low cross, which wasn't taken that well. It was hit pretty hard, to be fair. Here's Steve Woodin. Needs movement from midfield. Needs somebody left side or behind him. Being forced away all the time by Che Xiangbing. On our watch is a little over 3 minutes to go before the end of the first half. Perhaps the referee will have a little bit to add on for his stoppages for bookings. Trainer hasn't been on the field. An important time for New Zealanders to keep concentration, to go in at 0-0. I'm sure they will feel it's quite satisfactory. Would have settled for that at the start. I'm sure the manager would anyway. Manager who, like the rest of the team, was pleased that the backup they're getting from Rothmans for this World Cup effort. Again, the cross was hit long, but there were hard roll. There were lots of players coming through from the back. This is wrong, trying to chip one up, and good covering header, and good block tackle too. Covering header from Arman, the block tackle coming across from Ricky Herbert. But anyway, the flag had gone up. And although the verdict had already gone in their favour, some tigerish defending there. But the Chinese in the closing stages of this half have got into the habit of hitting the low cross, which can ricochet, and they're making sure they've got men coming from midfield at the back of the 18-yard area to try and seize onto it. It's Herbert. Richard Wilson, one of the players who plays his football in Australia for Preston Macedonia. Graham Turner's another. Steve Woodin. Lin Lafong. Lafong has looked so far a better player coming forward than he has as a defender, in my opinion. Duncan Cole coming up. Possible use of the long throw, indeed, and it's a good one. A chance to have a break. Good run down the middle by Rong. And another one by the 13, Chen Xiangfu, but the cross is a poor one. Rong peeled off to the right, and that, in fact, the last incident of the half. Referee perhaps just marginally sharp on his whistle, but no matter. So we reach half-time in the Workers' Stadium here in Peking with a scoreline that may not be terribly exciting, but in World Cup terms is a very useful one, of China 0, New Zealand 0. A few things for the Kiwis to talk about at half-time as the 5 substitutes go off. World Cup rulings, 5 may be changed and any 2 can be used. And John Adshead and Kevin Fallon going off there to have words at half-time. But I would think that they will be fairly happy, and I hope you will be too, as from the capital of the People's Republic of China, I return you to Peter Williams in Auckland in New Zealand.
Actually, Barry at Avalon and Lower Hutt in New Zealand, and they have a 15-minute half-time break at the Workers' Stadium, and after our commercial break we'll be taking a look at some of the highlights from the first half. That's coming up after this break. And it's half-time at the Workers' Stadium in Beijing, or as Barry Davies is still calling it, Peking, and the scoreline between New Zealand and the People's Republic of China, 0-0. A first half which didn't move at a particularly great pace, but nevertheless there were 1 or 2 highlights which are worth having another look at. Here they are.
It could be that Cole's going to have a crack. And the referee's certainly getting the full distance back of the wall, which did its job. I would have thought the manager might have a few words about that, because the ball placed like that, and when you're man against man at the back, numerical numbers. Buzzer Mackay's cross, just a bit too far for Grant Turner. When the position is even at the back, you'd surely do well to chip it over the wall and make use of the even Steven. Here's Sumner, hit it well, and the goalkeeper did well too. Gets a round of applause, but it was very well struck by Steve Sumner. Chen Xiangbing back to his goalkeeper. Bobby Arman covering at the back. It's a little bit short, and Richard Wilson was in trouble, but Chen Jinggang took no advantage of it. Here's Sumner. Wood in. That's good play by Steve Woodin, and hit it with his favoured left. Cole on the ball. 3 coming in for the run on the far post. Sumner, possibly if the angle changes for a left foot shot that might get round the wall. Change the angle once more. Nicely played by Woodin. Goalkeeper once again takes it falling forward. That's a useful turn. Straight into the arms of Richard Wilson, who was nicely placed on his near post. Shen Xiangfu, I think it was, who got across to that right post as we looked.
So New Zealand early in that half are making quite a bit of the play down in the Chinese area, but towards the end China perhaps getting in the higher number of attacking shots. But at half-time the score 0-0, and we'll be returning to the Workers' Stadium in Beijing in a few minutes when the second half gets underway. Going back to the Workers' Stadium in just a few moments, but while New Zealand starts the second part of their qualifying campaign to get to Spain, there have been other qualifying matches played in the European groups of the World Cup. Last night, West Germany 7, Finland 1, and that included for West Germany a hat-trick by Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, the European Footballer of the Year. That was in European Group 1. In European Group 3, Iceland 1, drew with Czechoslovakia 1, the Soviet Union 4, Turkey 0, and those results in Group 3 now mean that Wales has a very good chance of getting to the finals in Spain next year. But perhaps the result which was of most interest to New Zealand followers of soccer in Europe was the 0-0 draw between Romania and Hungary. Now this was in Group 4, that's the group that England is in, and now that Romania and Hungary have drawn, it means that England have virtually no chance at all of getting to the World Cup finals in Spain, and England of course have not qualified in their own right for the finals of the World Cup since 1962. It looks as if they're going to miss out again in 1982. For a comment on that rather dismal showing by England in this qualifying group, let's go back to Barry Davies.
Well, Peter, I've always been an optimist, and it's a question of while there's life, there's hope. Clearly, our hopes really depend upon Switzerland. If they can beat Romania when they play in Switzerland, then there's just a chance that England could qualify on goal difference. I think one must assume now that Hungary will win their home games. I think what can be said is the difference between England and New Zealand at this stage, and with great respect, it might be said that that's turning the football world upside down. The great difference is that New Zealand can qualify on their own bats, whereas England quite clearly can't. I mean, they could go to the last game against Hungary and find that all has been decided. But until the last kick, we've got to be hopeful. I was interested in that result of Czechoslovakia and Iceland, because quite frankly, that hadn't reached us here. And I think there is a parallel between the Welsh team and the New Zealand team, because the Welsh don't have a considerable number of footballers to pick their side from, and therefore they tend to have, as New Zealand have had, a pretty settled side. And also, I don't know whether this is true, because obviously I haven't seen club football back at home, but certainly it's true of the Welsh that they play better for the national side than they play at club level. They certainly lift themselves because of the atmosphere and the hoil, as I suppose would be the word to use for it. The adrenaline certainly flows more for them, and the Welsh have done very well. And I think there might have been a feeling that they were going to have to win in Moscow, but now that may not be the case, and it would be lovely to see Wales there. They haven't been there since 1958, when they got through slightly through the back door as a result of problems concerning Israel. And of course there was one stage when we thought that all four home countries from the British Isles would be there, but now we're preying on England. Scotland, I think you've got to fancy, although they've still got to play Northern Ireland, who are by no means out of it. And the Welsh now very much back in business. And I can tell you that since New Zealanders put 13 goals past Fiji, your team is being very much more followed in the United Kingdom. And there's a fair amount of rooting going on for you over there, and if England don't qualify, you might find yourselves under more publicity in Europe than you could possibly have imagined a year or so ago. But you've obviously got to this stage on merit, and it would be very nice if you can go on and beat this Chinese team that we are looking at now. You're correcting my pronunciation. It's always one of the problems of working out how you actually say a city, whether you call it Paris or Paris, for example. And having gone to some lengths to try and get as close an approximation of Chinese names, and we've got our interpreter sitting behind me who says that, well, I'm not doing too badly on them at least. I, of course, was calling it Peking and not Beijing, so my apologies for that. You might be interested to know that the capital here has 7.5 million inhabitants, and that puts it only second to Shanghai in terms of population. Population which is reckoned will reach 1 billion early in 1982. And as we look at the New Zealanders coming out, how about this for a thought to digest? That the time that after you've seen this match and you've gone to bed, the time it takes you to get up in the morning and have a wash and shower and have breakfast, there are estimated 1,400 new Chinese mouths to feed. And that really does take a little bit of thinking about. And as well as people, we found that this capital is full of bicycles. So much so, there are so many bicycles, and neither the riders of them or the pedestrians seem to have any rights whatsoever. And we've had one or two fairly close things, I would have thought, on the coach, but none of the players have been affected by the near misses. They've taken everything in their stride, the change of food and everything else. And we're hoping that as we get ready here for the second half, they will maintain their reputation, which the Australians know well. Brian Turner taking up the centre spot. I must say, I've never seen one put down like that. Looks like a piece of plastic. We're hoping, as I was about to say, that they'll maintain their reputation for being a very strong second half side. Just looking around the field, can't see any changes in the New Zealand side, and I can see no reason why there should be. So away we go on the second half of this World Cup match in the final Oceania Asia group. In case you've been out pretty late at night and you're just joining us, let me tell you that the score at half-time was 0-0, and New Zealand are playing in white, now attacking the goal to our left, against the Chinese, who are playing in all red. And as in the first half, New Zealanders making it difficult for them to build from the back. Two front players, Brian Turner doing a lot of covering forward, covering across. Here he comes in again, and it just puts them under pressure. It requires a great deal of effort from him, but it makes a difference. Here's perhaps the pick of the Chinese in the first half, certainly going forward. Gu Guangming on the right-hand side that we just saw. Adrian Elric staying very close to him. Out by Ricky Herbert. Up moved the back four. Here's Steve Woodin. It's nicely through to Sumner, and nicely switched to Mackay. Three men in the middle, and the challenge right on the edge of the box, but the ball was well won. And the free kick to the Chinese. 3 bookings in the first half against Brian Turner and Steve Woodin of New Zealand, and Chen Jingjiang of the Chinese People's Republic. Country, of course, were out of world football for so long because of disputes about Taiwan. Brian Turner just robbed. Wrong back to Lin Lafong. Chen Jingjiang forward. Out on the left side, Shen Xiangfu. Gu Guangming is in the middle. So is Chen Jingjiang. And a brave header out by Elric, and he was very nearly decapitated for his pains. Certainly it bristled the moustache a bit. As you can see, the arm aloft by the referee, indicating indirect free kick for dangerous play. New Zealanders scored 31 goals and conceded just 3 in the previous group. There was a push, it wasn't given. Zhang Chai-ying with not a particularly good clearance, met by Sumner. Didn't really get it quite right, but battled back for it. That's really been the real secret of this New Zealand team. They do battle and battle for each other. Chen Jingjiang back to Chen Xiangbing. Zhang Chai-ying. 20 is Chen Shirun. New Zealanders back all by one, covering space. Forcing them to play across, as they're doing again now. Well, that's not a bad effort by Rong Chi Hang. But it was, what, from 40 yards out? And I think that Richard Wilson and the New Zealand team will be very happy if they can force shots from that range. Just managed to get the gap into the left, where Chen Jingjiang just managed to have a crack, but it was always rising. Wood in. Chen Xiangbing. So these names are not the most easily pronounceable in the world, but having started a career in this job with the North Koreans in '66, perhaps that was useful practice. I wasn't to know it then. It's Gu Guangming. Rather longer then, though, to identify. And again, Li Lafong going into space. It's a good carrier of the ball, but he's gone down a cul-de-sac now. Finds Gu Guangming. And Gu Guangming is offside. Much to the relief of Glenn Dodds, who at that moment was over this side. Bobby Armand. Brian Turner at the opposite end of the park from him, going out to the right. Ball a bit short. Then Dodds. Chinese director hasn't given us a shot of either team bench as yet, but it's well populated down there. Elric needing to recover. Grant Turner did well getting back goal side and just getting a foot in on Gu Goming, and perfectly fairly. Good piece of play by the younger Turner. Here's Sumner. Looking for Elric, who'd gone forward. There was a time when he scored plenty of goals going forward. These days seen as a defender with North Shore. He's been with a long time now. Chin Jin Gang. Back to Chen Shirung. And that's useful. Got away by Bobby Armand. And Tsai getting himself on the wrong side of the play. Brian Turner having to articulate a lorry a little bit to get round. Ball just wouldn't come under his control. Here's Dodds. Here's Armand. Brian Turner. Chen Changbing. Lin Lafont. And Armand getting caught in no man's land. Seemed to slip as he came forward. Or perhaps he realised he was going too far forward and tried to put the brakes on. Armand once more. Everybody forward of him. Cole rightly opting for safety. Player behind him. Cinders pushing well up onto the edge of the centre circle. Met by Brian Turner. Here's Steve Woodin. First time shot, no mean effort. Never looked like quite getting round it enough, but it was worth the try. And you have a left foot like he has. If the ball drops kindly for you, it's worth having a flash at it, which is what he did then. But wide. Chen Changbing. The term match between these two, of course, is on Saturday week at Mount Smart. It was out of play. And a week later, New Zealand play Kuwait. Then there's a bit of a break before at the end of November they play Saudi Arabia. And then they hope to have set a target for the others and leave themselves with 2 away games in which to close any gaps if necessary. With away games in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, which is the same sort of system as they worked in the previous group. Got off to such a fast start that the Australians couldn't see them for dust. Well taken by the keeper. Off the head of Grant Turner. A good deep free kick. And although we can't see him in camera, it's interesting to tell you that another fast winger is being warmed up on the touchline down in front of me, the one who had a trouble with ankle, had trouble with his ankle, I should say, Yang Yu-min. Canny play by Elric. Rearward of Aberdonian. And there's a Chinese down in the centre of the field. The referee unimpressed. There he is, but I can't identify him from that angle. In fact, it's Rong Chi Hang. The most experienced player, and at 33 was the best player of the Hong Kong tournament. Free kick given, and an opportunity for Rong Chi Hang to have some attention. It'll be interesting to see just how many people come on. Oh, the linesman making sure But there are only two. One man in a white coat, who I presume is the doctor. There's moments too when there's a necessity to keep concentration. And suddenly you can be looking at how many players come on, and if Chen is anything to judge by, we're going to need a replacement here for the Chinese. He was certainly indicating that they'd need a change. 15, Gu Guaming and Rong Chi-hang being bundled off. A bit surprised that there's no stretcher to be found around. Are they going to make an immediate substitution, or are they going to wait? Well, there's a bit of a debate going on the bench. The manager has just appeared on the right. So far, no substitution, although Wang Feng is just warming up, going over to look at the injured player. And we've had over 10 minutes of the second half. Still no score. But I must say again that a draw here would be an excellent start for New Zealand. A win would be a bonus, and they'll still be looking for that. Chen Jinggang, another good challenge, the timing of it by Bobby Armand. And the free kick has been given in his favour. Chinese still staying with a 10-man team. There's Adrian Ulrich. He'll reach 32 in 5 days' time. Nice play by Steve Sumner. Perhaps it went a bit too far to his right, allowed the second challenge. To his left, rather. And you can't see it, but there is a mess of white-coated gentlemen around the injured Rong Chi-hang. Here's Chen. Zhuo Shusheng. Gu Guaming. Nice play. In fact, it was Shen Xiangfu. And on the field is coming number 6, Huang Shangtong, as replacement for the injured Rong Chi-hang. Gu Guaming. Flag had gone up for offside anyway. And rather a sad exit for the oldest player on the Chinese team. Stretcher arriving rather belatedly. But as we look again at the replay of that incident, I can tell you that Rong Chi-hang has been carried off. Cole making a run. And the applause has nothing to do with the play, but for the fact that Rong Chi-hang is being carried around the running track here, where the Chinese track and field championships have been taking place this week. One or two good performances too. There's Brian Turner's cross. And Grant Turner got there first, and the referee didn't like the fact that he got there first, and a free kick has been given. And Grant Turner certainly came off worse, but it seemed to me to be a ball within playable distance. Brian Turner, who provided the cross initially, and as the ball ran loose, I really felt that Grant Turner was fully entitled to go for it as the goalkeeper came down. And he got to the ball first, but injured himself in the process. And there he is, receiving now attention from Doug Edwards. Just one person necessary for the New Zealand squad, Doug Edwards, who's been the physiotherapist with the Kiwis for 6 years now. This is in practice in Auckland, and Grant Turner getting a few derisive cheers from the crowd. But it would take quite a lot for him to lead the field in a match so important as this. Match which has been billed in the local papers here as the most important in Chinese football history. Well, that's certainly true, and it might prove to be so in New Zealand football history as well. Lin Lafont. Grant Turner allowed his man to get goal side, but Elric covered. Quite adept, the Chinese, at letting the ball run. Here's little Chen. Plays for Guangdong. Good header out by Ricky Herbert. Here's Steve Woodin. He might get on a run here. He's got support on the right if he needs it. Dodds. Ricky Herbert's gone forward. Blocked by Brian Turner, but I think maybe with the use of his hand. Noise from the crowd, but it feels that the atmosphere is tinged with anxiety on their part. As we pass the hour of the match, it's still 0-0. And the secret surely of qualifying for World Cup finals is to win the home games, as England know to their cost. And Brian Turner just not able to get onto the end of that. Lin Lafont. So Xu Xiang won't come out to the right to Gu Guangming. Pace of the game has suddenly increased. New Zealanders want to get it back to their own. It's Bobby Armand. Ricky Herbert with room to move into. Square ball's really just allowing the defenders to get put under pressure. But Cole getting out of it. And nicely. Not too much width being offered. The New Zealanders tending to bunch a little bit down the middle. And they've really got themselves into trouble here. Here's Gu Guangming. This is all the result of the slow build-up from the back. And players not offering themselves. All back in cover now. And well turned out indeed by Bobby Armand as the threat came to Xu Xiang. I imagine John Nadshead on the bench will be a little unhappy about that, because really they got themselves into trouble. They got punched down the middle, they held it up too much in building the attack, and as a result the attack was built and from which has come a corner. In swinger coming up for Richard Wilson, and he's come off his line to take it and took it very well indeed and was fouled. Really looked very calm and assured, New Zealand goalkeeper. 25 years old, been around a little bit, played for a number of sides in New Zealand and also played briefly in Holland for Feyenoord and now in Australia. Dodds. Steve Woodin making a run to the right. That's better because Cole was over to the right as well. Much more movement up front from that attack. Oh, one by Sumner. And Brian Turner is well placed out to the left. Lin Lafont got in the way. Here's Elric. And the battle certainly boiling up. Both sides looking for the extra point that a win would bring. Zhang Chaiying. Disappointing one from Wong Zhangdong. Armand to Dodds. A challenge from behind on Mackay. Free kick given. 20 minutes of the second half gone. Still China 0, New Zealand 0. Turner calling for the long one down the middle. Woodin is just behind him. But But they've not looked as suspect in the air as reports had led the New Zealanders to believe. The Chinese at the back. And the referee not liking the power of the challenge then. Free kick's being given against Dodds. And the applause is for the appearance of Yang Yu-min on the touchline. But as yet, no number has gone up for substitution. And I suspect it would be number 13. Indeed, it is number 13. So this is a straight swap, really. A winger of pace for one of arguably greater pace who is not 100% fit. Lin Lafong. Chen Shirong, number 20. Forward to Zhuo Shusheng. It's a good turn by Gu Guangming, and it's a good header. Real opportunity missed. That was the best attack the Chinese have built. And it really was a gilt-edged opportunity, which wasn't taken. It's a good piece of play by Gu Guangming, who turned so well. And as the header took the ball over the head of Dodds, I think it was, there was a clear header on goal, which was put up too high. And little Chen, I think, will regret that. Free kick to New Zealand. As we rejoin the play live. Sumner. And I wonder whether New Zealand will look back on that moment as the moment that their route to Spain was cleared. Here's Chen Jinggang. Zhang Chaiying. And the first opportunity for Yang Yu-min. Showing no signs of the injured right ankle. So I was very surprised he wasn't put on from the start. Chen again. Chinese ball. Zhuo Shusheng and Steve Sumner. And the skipper taking the heat out of a little bit of pressure that the New Zealanders are under. And he gets a free kick. And the New Zealanders also about to make a substitution. And it's the predicted one. John Hill is going to come on in place of Glenn Dodds. And we've had 23 and a half minutes of the second half. And John Hill, who's a very experienced player, Irishman originally. And obviously it's thought that Dodds is feeling the effects of the hamstring injury which has troubled him ever since he came here to China. So the Chinese have brought on a winger for a winger, and fullback for fullback is New Zealand's reply. New Zealand ball. Richard Wilson is available. So no change really in the permutation of either side. A bit of leaping on the back of Brian Turner there, but no whistle. Here's Chen Jinggang. That's the fullback going forward there, Zhang Chaiying. Che Xiangbing as the crowd get behind their team. Little Chen has made a good diagonal run, number 20. Well covered by Bobby Almond. I think this is the Chinese best spell of the match. And they really ought to have scored. Two in the middle again. And they can wait there for the corner. And this is a real test of the character of the New Zealand team. because things are going a bit well for the Chinese at the moment. John Hill on the near post. 3 is Ricky Herbert. 10, Steve Sumner, the skipper, back on the 6-yard line. Gu Guoming is up. So it's Tsai, number 2. And it's coming to Tsai. And Brian Turner. Oh, he's giving it away. And this is Wong. And they've got a deflection. Richard Wilson touched it. And Adrian Elric pulling everybody back. And there's a fair bit of nail-biting going on in the few New Zealand supporters here, and I dare say you watching at home as the pressure increases, as that replay showed. Again, they pulled up for Chen to take the corner. You see them with everybody deep behind the penalty spot. Richard Wilson comes for it, gets a good punch, gets plenty of height in it. Lin Lafong with the shot. This was a nice try with the left, and it may just have got a touch off somebody as it went through, but Wilson with the body all behind it. On by Grant Turner. He claimed to the referee that he got a knock in the head, and the referee more concerned about the fact that Chen had pinched about 10 yards for the throw-in. Lin Lafong to Huang. Huang Changtong, to give him his full name. As Gu Guoming went off then, you could see Bobby Armand coming across. I think he would have got there first. Here is Armand. Started his football career with Tottenham Hotspur. And John Hill well forward. Brian Turner got the good back header, didn't fall to a New Zealand man. That's a goal kick. Shot played under a lot of pressure by John Hill. I had the impression in conversation the other day as one of the favourite players of Charlie Simpson, the director of the New Zealand World Cup squad. Once again the volume increases. Li Fushong clears his lines, but he's been more of a spectator in this half, particularly in the last 10 minutes. .5 minutes to go, I make it. Still 0-0, but the best opportunity of the night certainly fell to Chen Shirong. This is Wong. Chen Jinggang, Huang. Gu Guoming. He really does look a very good player. Oh, good challenge by Hill. Good turn by Zhuo Shusheng. Oh, but he had the opportunity for the shot and didn't take it. He's back where he started. Crowd are appreciating it, but he's missed his opportunity. Had a clear chance for the right foot shot as he turned. He left 3 men, created space for himself, but wanted to go back for the second pirouette, which was quite unnecessary. But why should I worry, and why indeed, more importantly, should the New Zealanders worry? Steve Sumner from the back to Bobby Armand. Sumner. Turner, Woodin and Mackay forward. And a certain amount of time being wasted here by New Zealand. And no pressure coming from the Chinese. So they're just enjoying a bit of practice passing and allowing a few seconds to go away. Which may not be madly entertaining, but the onus is on the Chinese to get the ball. And the suggestion is that the New Zealanders are going to make sure they don't lose what they've got at the moment, which is 1 point with which they started the match. Steve Woodin back to Mackay. Brian Turner in the middle. This is promising. Cole's cross, well taken by the keeper, although he lost it for a second. Well, they don't like their goalkeeper to be touched. But he bumped into Brian Turner rather than the reverse, I would have thought. Lin Lafong. Henrik just getting the foot in. It's a Chinese ball. Turner. Movement on the right side, but he's gone all the way back to Richard Wilson. A pass which predictably gains ironic applause, and it would in any country. Armand. Spectacular clearance by Zhang Jiaying. And a bit of elbows given. A bit of turning by Ricky Herbert is the referee's view of that on Chen Jinggang. 12.5 minutes left. Here's little Chen. And here's Gu Guoming. Elric facing him. Just got a foot, which was enough. And Turner, massive presence came across then. The shot from Zhuo Zhusheng. He hit very much off balance. And the cross to him wasn't as good as it might have been, but for the fact that there was a clear physical threat from Grant Turner on Gu Guoming as the ball came across, landed at Zhuo Zhusheng, but as he hit the ball, he was clearly off balance and couldn't direct his shot. Chen. And the flag stays down, and here's Gu Guoming. And they're massing in the middle. Good header by Ricky Herbert. Had to follow it to make sure. Chinese have got a corner. But number 15, Gu Guoming, has certainly offered the greatest threat. Said that Hamburg in Germany have been interested in this student who comes from Guangdong. His 16th cap tonight, and he looks a very good player indeed. Tsai has come up again, number 2 for the corner. And Yang Yumin is up there as well. And what a waste. Richard Wilson taking his time. Really has looked solidity itself. You may have picked up that shout from John Adshead. Adrian, tell them. Manager wanting to make quite sure that they don't give it away in what is now the final 10 minutes of the match. Come on now, challenge. You probably picked it up as well from Steve Fallon. Here's Gu Guoming. And Adrian, who is Elric, equal to the task. He's had the most difficult job of the evening. Steve Sumner. We've seen him much more deep in the last quarter of an hour. And who scored 6 goals against Fiji. Rather more concerned in making sure the opposition doesn't score here tonight. Duncan Cole on the far side. Changing gang. Followed by Herbert. Got to keep their discipline, the New Zealand players. Not get drawn into false areas. Sumner covering Huang. Herbert committing himself really a bit too early there. 4-man attack. Chen over this side, number 20. And Grant Turner was certainly in the corner of Chen's eye. This is Lin Lafong. It's Wo Shu Sheng. Oh, that's a useful cross, comes down to Chen. New Zealanders survive again. Wang. Turned out by Ricky Herbert, putting Wilson under pressure. It's a blatant jump at the goalkeeper, and the free kick has been given. No question, it was a foul then by Yang Yu-min. And Bobby Harmon giving a fairly universal indication of a player's view of another player who does something a little silly. It was silly too, because Wilson was under enough pressure as it was. Play by Steve Woodin. Foul by Sai Chek Yao. Referee says get up. And there's a little bit of feeling creeping in. That has been a bit there for most of the game. So important is the prize. Although who knows, it might be in the end that they'll both be there. Threat coming from the Middle East in the persons of Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. Kuwait, who are taking this match, and I understand listening to me at the same time. Elric with a free kick. Square ball might find Cole, although Huang is aware of that. 3 placed on the far side, marked by 3, and Mackay just behind them. Woodin, and in they come. There's a bit of pushing going on, and the free kick to China. 6.5 minutes left. 0-0 the score. A point New Zealand have. New Zealand ball. Chinese say that they have 15,000 registered players of football, and they have two 16-team leagues, the first and second division, and then 2 20-team leagues lower down for youth and juniors. It doesn't include the provincial sides. And clearly now that they're back with the world body, FIFA, they're wanting to make an impression. And that looked a bit dodgy on the edge of the box, but no appeals for the foul on Woodin, and no foul indeed given. This is Yang Yu-min. Bobby Harmon across. Oh, what a good challenge. Timed it perfectly. One that had to be made too, because there were holes behind him. Here's Huang. Yang Yu-min. Out by Cole. Back by Che Xiangbing. Zhong Chai-ying. Chance here for a break for Grant Turner. He's got Brian Turner to the left. He's got Woodison to the right. Steve Woodin, I mean, not Woodison. He used to be a martyr, I believe. Here's Cole. Mackay with Hill outside. Better possession stuff from New Zealand. Cheshangbing. Four and a half minutes on my watch. And some more chance going up as Lin Lafong goes into the space. Hill just watching. Chin Gang behind. And they've stifled the space again, the New Zealand team. Wong waiting for the cross. Gu Guaming in the middle. So is Wo Shu Sheng. And that's wide and harmless.
About 1 minute of injury.
My estimate is there will be about a minute of injury time. And Richard Wilson in no hurry. On by Brian Turner. Met by Bobby Armand. What's a difficult bounce then? Cole, Hill. Steve Woodin. Just a bit too long for Grant Turner. He did well to play it in early, but it's a goal kick. And maybe we haven't seen as much of New Zealand as an attacking force as you would have seen in the matches in the earlier round. But the priority here was always to avoid defeat first and gain victory if possible as a bonus. Two and a half minutes plus injury time. Bobby Armand got underneath it a little bit and has got to recover his ground. Some of the control looks nice, but it often allows a defender to get back. Lin Lafong. Little Chen, and that's a useful cross which Ricky Herbert needed to win and did, and Hill needs to win this and does. And sets up a possible opportunity for a run by Steve Woodin. Needs help coming forward for what is now the throw-in. Under 2 minutes, plus what the Japanese referee has on his watch. Richard Wilson says, leave it to me. Give it me back if you like, I'm sure. Elric. Chinese rather reluctant to come forward and pressurise the back players to gain possession. I think Musheng, who's really only had to collect in the second half. Elric and Gu Guaming and Armand again. He's had a really stirring and sterling second half as Bobby Armand. He's covered very well indeed. And we're now into the last minute of actual playing time. Indeed, as I say that, the linesman down in front of me checks his watch. And a 0-0 draw in Bucharest may have made England's life very difficult and their chance of getting to Spain. The 0-0 draw here in Beijing might prove to be what the doctor ordered for New Zealand. 3 home games to follow. Right on the penalty spot is the cry from the bench. Brian Turner is just to the right of it. Chinese prepared to move forward, and Cole is making the late run. Hit a bit wide though. Finds Mackay. And as Li Fusheng takes the ball, The referee, having allowed precious little time for the odd stoppage, blows the final whistle, and New Zealand have come away from China, from a crowd that was obviously all against them, with a very precious point as the result of a 0-0 draw. As I said pretty early on, I imagine that management and all concerned will be very happy to have started with a difficult away match with 1 point in their pockets. Certainly the Chinese had more of the second half and missed a fine opportunity when Chen Shirong had a clear header on goal and put it over the top. The Chinese, bowing to the crowd, I would think would be a little bit disappointed. One or two firecrackers going off in the crowd, although there were staunch and stern warnings at half-time that no firecrackers should be used.